Sitting throwing rocks across the pavement, hoping it will cave in and swallow me whole. Wondering why my mind keeps on spinning. This isn't how living to me was told. Why am I like this? Something's always amiss. Can't put my finger on it, but it's there. Wait for it to subside, but my mind won't apply. Waiting for the clear. Is it bad? Sometimes I like it when I lose control. There's something in it that's so beautiful. Listen, I can see the light but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say. I'm doing my best not to run away. Sitting throwing rocks across the pavement, hoping it'll cave in and swallow me whole. Wondering how the world keeps on spinning, kinda scared of living when it unfolds. Hard to see the light when everything is silent, waiting for the clear. Thankful I'm alive, but terrified of dying. But hey, I'm still here. Is it bad? Sometimes I like it when I lose control. There's something in it that's so beautiful. Listen, I can see the light but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say. I'm doing my best not to run away.
We have a technical difficulty. Give us 1 second. Okay. There we go. Sorry for everybody on YouTube. First time back on a live show, so that is what you get. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football, the first live show since May. It is nice to be back, Shawn. It's nice to see your pretty face. We have lots to discuss. People listening on the podcast. 2 big 2024 commits set their announcement for this weekend. We are going to talk Ohio State. We are going to talk Indiana. We are going to talk Maryland. And we have 6 fantastic fan questions. Might be some of the best fan questions we've ever got. So thank you for those. We'll get right into the show in just 1 second. What's up, MRob456? Thanks for being here. Do you think that's the Michael Robinson?
I can only hope so.
I
think he's on NFL Network now, so maybe he's dipping his toe back into the college.
Let me lower you just a little bit before we... Just make you a little bit bigger. There we go. Oh, Christoph is here too. Christoph. I always want to make sure I say
He's
it right.
a weekly regular,
Yes.
I believe.
Yes. All right, Shawn, you ready?
I'm ready.
Well, you're still a little... Is your camera like as low as it can go? I feel like your seat's a little bit lower today.
That's pretty much the same height. Me.
Did you shrink a little bit?
As far as I know, I didn't.
Oh,
I might have grew wider, but definitely didn't get taller or shorter.
Nice. Okay. Well,
Definitely didn't get thinner.
Yeah, no, same here. We can get right into the show. So, 3, 2, 1. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Cory Listoki. With me, as always, the great Shawn Kane. How are you doing today, Shawn?
Very good, Cory. Happy to be back live with you, seeing your beautiful face, and ready to attack this Wednesday night pod. How about you?
Yes. Very happy to be back. You know, I just had to get a sip there. The war station, the war room is sort of set up. It's a cluttered desk right now. But for those that didn't know, I was recording when I lived in Alabama. I was recording in a closet, basically. Much better acoustics in the new room, so excited about that. But I kind of forgot how exciting it is to do the show live. Like, obviously, non-live is fun, but there's something about doing it live and having a bunch of people on YouTube chatting with us. Rob's in here, Christoph's in here, Andrew Redding's in here. There's something about it doing it live. So thank you guys for being here. We are back live from now until ever. I mean, I don't plan on moving anytime soon. But very excited to be back live. I will say this, just one housekeeping item before we begin. We haven't exactly figured, we're going to go to the 2 times a week for people that just joined us in the spring. We go 2 times a week sometime in August through the whole regular season. Last year we did Sundays and Wednesdays. We haven't decided yet, but just consider a potential Monday and Wednesday night show. Just consider that. We haven't decided yet. But yes, Rob, we'll do it live. Anyway, a lot to talk about today, Shawn. We got some recruiting stuff. I think it's always fun to talk about Ohio State. I feel like people always want to talk about Ohio State. So we'll talk about Ohio State, Indiana, and Maryland. And then we have a bunch of fan questions. I think we got more than 6, but I think I used 6 questions. I also asked the people on Twitter, not saying Penn State's going to go 15-0, but what would they have to do in order to go 15-0 or whatever the case may be. So some good answers there as well. Lots to get into, Shawn.
That is a tremendous question, and I've been thinking about it since yesterday, and I definitely have some well thought out thoughts on that. And yeah, I mean, just being able to, I mean, the thing is, and Cory could back me up on this, when we don't record live, it's still the same show. So we still do the same exact things, except it's not on YouTube. So, I mean, it was still pretty, pretty much our raw opinions. Cory's not censoring my crazy opinions, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, it's great to be back with you guys, and thank you for hanging out with us.
The only thing I will admit, the only thing I edited out was the intro like 2 weeks ago when I definitely said Purdue in the intro to the video that we're going to be previewing Purdue.
That's right.
I did edit that out because I said it again in the episode. I didn't edit it out in the middle of the episode, but I thought the intro, that'd be pretty bad if I introduced maybe someone new to listening to the show and mentioned Purdue. Jacob Sparrow on YouTube as well said, "We are so back." Yes, we are.
All right.
I will say this. Thank you guys for listening. Last week's episode, over 40% higher than what we've had pretty much the whole off season, so to speak. Obviously, we're here every week, so there really isn't an off season, but I think you guys are excited, and we're excited to talk Penn State football. Before we get to college football, Shawn, do you have any thoughts on Saquon Barkley and the Giants? I think you're more up to date than I am with the issue. I don't know. I think Saquon spoke out a little bit maybe today about it. I don't really know the details, so enlighten us about what exactly is going on, and should I draft Saquon Barkley on my fantasy team this year?
Well, I'll do your last question first. Yeah, I think he plays. I do think he'll play on the tag. So the New York Giants wanted to tag Saquon, and Saquon Barkley never signed the franchise tag.
Wow.
And
wow.
And if you don't sign the franchise tag, you're not technically holding out. So it's not like you're getting fined. So Saquon's not getting fined even if he doesn't play the whole season, because he's technically not signed by the New York Giants right now. That being said, I think he should have taken the reported last offer, and that was $22 million guaranteed, and I think $11 million a year over 3 years. So in the NFL, the thing that matters the most, and you could argue only matters, is the guaranteed money, because they're always restructuring contracts. They could get rid of you at any moment, especially when you're a running back. Like if Saquon, God forbid, seriously hurt himself this season, he was gone. Even if he signed the contract, but he would still be able to pocket that $22 million. Saquon wanted something close to $30 million guaranteed. And if you look around the NFL, Josh Jacobs didn't get a new contract. I don't even think he got his 5th-year option, which I think that's nuts. I think that's a bit extreme. But the latest trend has been get rid of these guys as soon as they turn 26 or 27. Get rid of the running backs. Don't pay them. And the Giants they didn't exactly do that, but in Saquon's mind, they lowballed them. So I think the Giants should have tried to get something done with him, though. And if it meant giving him 24, 25 guaranteed, then I think they should have done it. I think they could have been a little more flexible. But that being said, if I was Saquon, I would just take the 22 mil guaranteed. But that's just me.
How much more did he want?
I think he wanted close to 30.
So they're not even really that close.
Not really, no. And I think that's kind of the issue. And then Saquon, the other thing he did, which is an interesting move, his agent is through Rock Nation. And then he has a separate marketing firm that handles all his marketing stuff. In the last few weeks, he's gotten his marketing team in the negotiation. He hasn't parted ways with Rock Nation yet, but now he has both of them negotiating with the New York Giants together. So that tells me he might not be thrilled with Rock Nation right now. Just reading between the lines.
Yeah, no, that's some good stuff, Shawn. Like I said, I wasn't really up to date with it, so I appreciate that.
You got it, man.
What is do you know who's making the most money right now as a running back? Is it Christian McCaffrey or Derrick Henry? Okay,
McCaffrey. I think he's still. Yeah, he's getting something like over $30 million guaranteed, I believe.
Now, from what I understood, Saquon didn't want to be the highest paid, correct?
No. He said he just wanted to be, adequately compensated, but that means different things between the organization and the player.
I would also like to be adequately compensated.
Yeah, I mean, me too. Me too. Yeah, isn't that really one? And then, but the running backs, like, they supposedly have some big group text, and this is people saying, and I don't think it's confirmed, that there was kind of a coordinated social media effort to be like, really, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, and Saquon Barkley aren't getting deals, really. But, I mean, that's the way the NFL is going. And I think the running back position in my lifetime has been by far the most devalued position. Like in the beginning of my lifetime, like Emmitt Smith, even a guy like Shawn Alexander, Adrian Peterson, like those guys, like they were among the highest paid players on the team. And now I believe I saw on Twitter that the average kicker is making more than the average running back.
Yeah, I saw that too.
That shows you just how valued the position has become. And I think it's just because they throw these guys away when they're 26, 27 years old, and that's just kind of the reality.
Interesting. We'll see what happens there, and we'll see how that ends up. The only other thing I really want to mention, they had some max lifts going on at the Penn State weight room. Nick Singleton, I believe, put up 380 on the power clean, which I was going to grab a video, but I didn't. So we're still trying to get back into the live show of things, but which was 15 pounds or close to the 15 pounds to Saquon's record with the clean. And Jordan Vandenberg set a school record 615 pounds, 4 reps at 615. He also cleaned, I think he cleaned 400 something, didn't he? It's like 405.
Yeah, something like that.
And like
he got the record.
His like hand didn't even get all the way over there, and he like lifted it with like one hand, which
it looked dangerous.
and James Franklin tweeted something, like quote tweeted with him, I think it was with the squat video, about how much he's improved. And I'm not just saying this because Jordan Vandenberg's a white guy, but I'm getting a little bit of a Carl Nassib vibe here, Shawn.
Maybe a little Anthony Zettel. But honestly,
he does not look 320, 310. He's dense.
Yeah, I always thought he was a little small, but no, he's not at all. I mean, and then when I watched him, do that clean, I mean, I was like, ooh, geez, I hope his elbow's all right, because if that was me, I think my elbow would totally dislocate. But I mean, he's strong as an ox, and he's a guy that I feel like we're talking about more than pretty much anybody else. He's been on our radar for a while, partly because every time I've watched him come in, and he's had a relatively small role on the team the couple of years that he's been here, I feel like he always makes the most of his time on the field when he gets a chance, and he's going to have a bigger role this year. They typically like to use anywhere between 5 and 6 defensive tackles in a game. They like to rotate, and I expect him to be part of that rotation and be productive.
Yeah, I like him. I think he might do even a little bit more than that. I'm excited to see what he can do. The defensive tackle position is just like, what are we going to get? Hakeem Beamon, or I think as T. Fraish called him, Hakeem Beefman. got bigger. You got Keziah Izzard, who was a little banged up during spring, but do you think those are probably your two starters? But then you got Devon Ellies, you got Jordan Vandenberg, you got Caleb Artest, you got Devon Townley, you got Zane Durant. I mean, you got Ty Blanding in there. So you got some serious options there. So all of them are going to play. I just think whoever really kind of makes the biggest impact is going to be out there the most. And that's not even, thinking about what they do on third and long situations where they might bring in or they might slide a Deni Dennis Sutton into the 3-tech. Or, you already got Zane Durant that could probably be out there still. But you got a lot of different fun things you could do. Or you could put Amin Vanover at the 3 technique or even the 1 technique at his size. So you get a lot of different fun things. And I'm sure Manny Diaz is already salivating about that. But it's really nice to see Jordan Vandenberg just kill it in the weight room. Shawn, are you ready to talk recruiting?
Let's talk recruiting.
Okay, let's see if I can.
Yeah, this could be
right
really cool.
I feel like the sound didn't sound.
I heard like the first part of it, but like the bit, but that was it.
Yeah, should we try it one more time?
Yeah, do it up. Yeah, same thing.
It's trying to do it, but it didn't do it. I don't know. Maybe people on YouTube could hear it fine. We just couldn't hear it over the podcast. Okay, I don't know. Anyhow, on the proud recruiting news, Shawn, some pretty good news for your biggest target left on the 2024 board. I'll let you chat.
So, last month of recruiting, if you guys have been following along with us, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. There's been some good moments, definitely some disappointing moments, and one of the guys that we have talked about for months and months now is Liam Andrews. And all was kind of quiet on his recruiting trail. He doesn't tweet a lot. It's very hush-hush. And with guys like that, your actions kind of speak louder than your words. And he visited Penn State early in June. And then he went to Wisconsin. He went to South Carolina. And for a while, he was one of those early June visitors, and we've talked extensively about how, they tend to fall in love with the last place they were, and we were kind of worried that Liam Andrews would. But he took his time. He took a few weeks, and the crystal balls are in, and it looks like he's going to be joining Penn State's class. So he's crystal balled to Penn State. That's not a guarantee, but Penn State definitely looks to be the clear leader right now to be able to land Liam Andrews, and he is a beast. He's an awesome offensive lineman. He'll probably play defensive line at Penn State, defensive tackle, and he was, in my mind, probably Deion Barnes' biggest target, especially at this stage in the cycle. So we're thrilled to be potentially landing him in a few days. I believe he announces Friday, and then we might be getting another one on Saturday.
Yeah, and we always talk about the Friday commitments, and I mean, do what you want, but Friday is usually not the best day to commit if you're trying to get a bunch of attention. That's just, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but that's just usually not the best time to do it. I know it's, by the way, still on you, but there's a reason why I still have it on your screen, even though I'm talking. But I mean, do whatever you want. I will say this. There was a couple kind of crystal ball submissions there. I mean, we said this on the last episode too, Shawn, that it's a really good thing that he never snap committed after the Wisconsin visit. He never snap committed after the South Carolina visit. That, at least in my opinion, makes me feel a lot better about this than if he committed like the Monday after he visited one of those places.
Oh, no doubt. because Penn State was on the receiving end of a couple of those disappointments, and guys that decide, like you said, the Monday after, even the Wednesday or Thursday or Friday after, because the last visit knocked your socks off. And hey, that's just the way it goes. We've gotten plenty of guys that way, I'm sure. And just a clarification, he announces on Friday. So I just want to make that clear.
Yes. Let me try to go to my screen. Look at that. It's like we've been doing this the whole time. Yeah, and I guess, and then so that's your favorite player. You still think he plays defense?
That's what it seems like.
Okay, because it's kind of a good segue to the next kind of question is, does he still play defense? Which, if you ask Ryan Snyder or Shawn Fitz, they think he's better as an offensive lineman. Does he still play defense if Penn State lands a potential target that commits on Saturday in T.A. Cunningham, who is a defensive lineman that's choosing Penn State or Miami for the most part? There's a couple other teams in his top 5, but we think it's between those two. A couple other predictions are in across different recruiting sites. That's, to me, the interesting thing. Deion Barnes, first of all, killing it because Jalen Harvey's still out there too. But do you play Liam Andrews on offense? Now, again, you have a really good offensive line class at this point, Shawn, so maybe you don't worry about that. And you just put him where you maybe need him. But if he is a better offensive lineman, now, are we splitting hairs here, or is he pretty good at both? Like, who knows? I'm just kind of interested to see what they do, but also tell us a little bit about T.A. Cunningham as well.
Yeah, T.A. Cunningham, he's from Miami, so he's from the Miami area. And the thing with him, he was a 5-star recruit like last season. So I don't really know what happened with him. I think he might have transferred schools or something like that. And his rating dropped off a bit. Now he's still a 4-star prospect. He still has plenty of great offers. Miami, Oklahoma, Michigan, amongst others, and very good football player. 6'6", and has all the tools to be a really good football player at Penn State. And to pick him up would be really what Deion Barnes wanted. I mean, I think after he missed out on some of our bigger targets, Benedict Ume, Jamonte Waller, it became very, very important to be able to land a combination of Liam Andrews and T.A. Cunningham, and it looks like Deion Barnes is going to be able to land them both.
Yeah, and we talked about Deion Barnes quite a bit in the last month or so, and I just feel like he's doing a fantastic job picking up after what John Scott Jr. Laid a decent foundation, but I feel like the recruiting has picked up to a certain degree. Honestly, the Benedict Ume situation, like, Stanford's recruiting a lot better than they have been, but it just is almost bizarre because I don't think they expected Ume to be absolutely blown away the way he was out there. Take that for what it is, but I mean, it is what it is. I don't think it was anything Penn State didn't do as much as maybe what Stanford did out there.
More like Benedict Arnold, am I right?
That's a pretty good one.
Thanks. All love.
Not that we're comparing Benedict Ume to Benedict Arnold.
We're just having fun.
But no, that was pretty clever. I'll give you that. Anyone? I mentioned Jalen Harvey. He's still floating out there as well. Is there anyone else you want to just quickly mention? Penn State's still kind of looking at, wanting to see if where they're at before we know that was it Nigel Smith is 100% going to go into the fall. Is that correct?
Seems that way. Another guy I think you have to, maybe look out for a little bit is Hardly Gilmore. He's a Florida kid, wide receiver. He might be a bit of a Kentucky lean right now, but I think Penn State's in it. So maybe keep an eye on him.
Thought you said Happy Gilmore at first.
I wish.
That'd be cool. Okay, sweet.
Still a fun name though, Hardly Gilmore.
Yes, no, that's a fantastic name.
His brother's name is Very Gilmore.
Very and Happy?
Very and Hardly.
Oh, yeah. Hardly, or what would be the... did you say barely?
Very.
Oh.
Maybe especially.
You could do a lot of different things there. You got a lot of different options there. Okay. I don't think I have a little thing for the predictions, but we'll show you the film room one because it's cool. It's not a film room thing, but we'll show that one anyway because it's cool. And then we'll talk previews of Ohio State and Indiana and Maryland. They say the audio on YouTube's okay, so it's just coming through us is not coming out properly for whatever reason. But
cool.
Is what it is. We're gonna talk Ohio State first. Does that sound good with you, Shawn?
Talk about them Buckeyes.
Which I get my notes out here. I could write like 5 pages on Ohio State, honestly. Before we get to this, I jokingly named this episode Born on Third Base after what Harbaugh said about Ryan Day.
I noticed that. Clever.
Do you agree with said comment?
Yeah. I mean, I'd wonder if even Ryan. Now I know it was an insult from Jim Harbaugh, but I'm sure if he searched his feelings a little bit, I think Ryan Day would realize he was born on third base too. Now, does that take away what he's done? I don't think so. But he had a much easier time of it than Jim Harbaugh did at Michigan when he first came in, and especially James Franklin did. When you're following up a legend, first off, it's a bit more complicated than that because you're replacing Urban Meyer. You know you're always going to be compared to Urban Meyer, which he is, and you're going to be in his shadow a little bit. However, if Urban left a good situation for you, which he did, yeah, it's going to make your job a whole lot easier. I mean, to be able to inherit the kind of talent he had and the culture he had. But I think now, and maybe even last year, now is when you start seeing how good of a coach Ryan Day is, because this is fully his program now. Urban Meyer last coached Ohio State in 2018. So this is Ryan Day's baby, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and my only thing about that is, like, it's true, but it's not like Ryan Day has lost to pretty much anybody that was bad, right? Like, they've lost to pretty much only good teams. And some of them, like, I mean, it wasn't a great kick, but they were 1 field goal away from beating Georgia. I mean, that was an atrocious kick, but or in Ohio State fans' situation, they thought there should be a targeting, but I always say if you're trying to hope for a targeting call to win you a game, that's usually not a good place to be. I just was curious about that because Ryan Day, I think, is a very interesting case. You don't really ever get to have a coach that hasn't proven himself to be in a position that he's in very often. So, like, there's no one really to compare him to because, I mean, whoever takes over after Nick Saban retires is probably going to be someone who's coached before. Same for Clemson. You know, that's like if Penn State would have, after Joe Paterno was fired, they would have brought in. No, that wouldn't even been a good example because the Penn State wasn't even at that level. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard, and therefore there's no real precedent to what to expect. There's no real good comparison. So I think it's an interesting thing. I will say this about Ryan Day. They went out and gave Jim Knowles a bunch of money last year. And I think it was effective for the most part. But as we get into it, they weren't very good against I would say against good offenses. I'll just say good offenses. But against everyone else, they were fantastic. Interesting schedule to me, Shawn, that maybe starts my skepticism a little bit about Ohio State this year. They got to go at Notre Dame, they got at Wisconsin, and they have at Michigan. And so, and of course, Penn State at home, which, those aren't easy games. I think Notre Dame's going to be a good team. I have no idea what to expect with Wisconsin, with Luke Fickell. And then going to Michigan, I mean, this got their breaks beat off of them at home against Michigan last year. With a new quarterback, I don't know, Shawn. I don't like this schedule if I'm an Ohio State fan.
Well, it's got a few things going on. Number one, it's not an easy out of conference. I mean, yeah, they play Youngstown State, they play Western Kentucky. You got to go to South Bend, and that's going to be, I'm sure, a ruckus atmosphere. Then a couple weeks later, they host Penn State, and Penn State is, according to pretty much everybody, either for top 5 to top 8 team in the country going into this season. Then they got to go up to Camp Randall, and then they're in Ann Arbor. So 3 of their 4 toughest teams that they play in my view are on the road. So anytime anybody is facing something like that, yeah, I mean, a 2-loss season is very much in play. And to me, the game that's going to set the tone for the rest of the season is that Notre Dame game. And that's as much of a must-win as Ryan Day has had. Losing to Georgia last year, I know it sucked. But people generally did not expect them to win that game. And I know he's lost 2 straight to Michigan. But if they could beat Notre Dame, I really think that puts them on track to be at least where they want to be. And they're not going to be looking, and in my mind, they're going to be able to get at least 10 wins. If they lose to Notre Dame, they're staring 9 wins straight in the face.
Right. If they lose to Notre Dame, now it's like, okay, can they go to Camp Randall and win? Can they beat Penn State at home? Can they? Yeah, then that becomes, Yeah,
9 wins in Columbus.
The fans go.
That is way different than 9 wins here, guys.
I will say this: I think he has to beat Michigan. I don't think he's going to get canned if he doesn't do it, but I really think he's got to find a way to beat Michigan this year because people are not happy out there with this.
If they're 9-3 and they lose to Michigan, I think he's going to get fired.
That's crazy, isn't it?
It is, but that would be 3 straight losses against their chief rival, and that's not acceptable for Ohio State fans. There's a coach a long time ago, our old heads definitely know him, John Cooper. And John Cooper was a pretty good football coach at Ohio State in the 90s, but he lost to Michigan all the time. So John Cooper was shown the door, and then they brought Jim Tressel in, and the dominance began. And I think Ohio State fans will be in a spot where they're going to try to recreate that. And they might even try to bring Urban back, even with all the baggage from Jacksonville. They just want to win, baby. And if he were to come back, I think they would win. You might not like him, but the guy's a great college coach.
Yeah, that would be
the pros, but in college he could.
That'd be an interesting thing. Let's talk about it. Just a couple of random things, random notes. Some of these came from College Football News, so shout out to them. Some good previews over there. Ohio State cornerbacks didn't have a single interception last year, and then they're only really one from a safety and Ransom who had 1 interception. So that to me is, first of all, just crazy. The secondary was not very good last year. Just to think of what you will of Sean Clifford. Sean Clifford threw for 371 yards and 3 touchdowns against them. More importantly, Michigan and Georgia both threw for over 11 yards per attempt against Ohio State. So, first of all, Michigan And that was like people like got on the J.J. McCarthy train right after that. Thought he was the best thing since sliced bread after his performance. He had like 2 touchdown passes where there was nobody around the Michigan player, and they hailed him as like the next best quarterback. And then we saw what happened against TCU. But they made J.J. McCarthy look like Peyton Manning that day. And then Georgia was able to throw the ball all over the place. So secondary is a concern, Shawn, and just defense in general. This is a crazy stat. I know it's a lot of yards, but to me, this is still a pretty crazy stat. Ohio State was 6-8 when they allow 485 yards, which I know 485 is a bunch of yards, but 6-8 when they allow 485 yards. First of all, the fact that they still win 6 games after allowing 500 yards is crazy. But listen to this. When they allow less than 485 yards, they are 61-1. So if you're a Penn State fan out there, you kind of need to get to 485 yards offensively, some way, some shape, or form. Then you're in pretty good company. Otherwise, I think it was 2019 Clemson beat Ohio State without scoring 485 yards. So you need to get to above 485 if you're going to beat Ohio State, apparently.
Yeah. Everybody has that magic number they want to get to. We spoke pretty extensively about Cliff's magic number. You want to keep him under 35 attempts last season, and when we did, you win if you're Penn State. And it's the same thing with Ohio State. I mean, to me, you think about all the great wideouts they've had. In the past 10 years, they've had Michael Thomas, Curtis Samuel, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. Marvin Harrison's the best one out of all of them in college, at the very least. I mean, this guy is a walking just game breaker. 1,263 yards last year, 14 touchdowns. I mean, to score 14 touchdowns in 13 games, I mean, that's very, very impressive. And I think one of the sequences in our game with them last year that gets scrutinized quite a bit is Joey Porter playing off the ball on him on that go-ahead drive, touchdown drive that they had. And you know, he had a big first down on that drive. I thought we did a decent job overall playing him last season. And I know Kalen King has spoken recently about how he can't wait for that matchup. And if you're a fan of college football, tune in for that, just for that matchup alone, even if you're not a fan of either of these teams. Like Kalen King versus Marvin Harrison Jr., man, that's going to be some top-level football. And you're going to see that matchup for a long time to come if they in the pros.
Yeah, no, let's stick to the Ohio State offense there. Really good last year. Number 2 in scoring, number 9 in total offense, number 2 in passing efficiency. Put up 467 yards of offense and 41 points on Georgia. So Georgia, very good defense. That was impressive. They, of course, lose C.J. Stroud, new quarterback Kyle McCord's all but pretty much going to be the starter there. 6'3", 215 pounds. You know, still a really impressive quarterback prospect, but maybe not to the level, at least the hype isn't to the level of the previous like 4 or 5 quarterbacks that they've had, right? I mean, you had Barrett, you had Miller, you had Barrett, you had Haskins, you had Fields, you had Stroud. I don't want to be knocking Kyle McCord before he really goes out there. First of all, he didn't look fantastic in the spring game when he had a great opportunity to take the role. But the hype isn't as crazy. Now, that being said, you mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, the other tandem to that is Emeka Egbuka, who also had 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. So he's going to have plenty of weapons. Cade Stover, Julian Fleming. He's going to have plenty of people to throw the football to that will make him look better. I'm sure he's going to have games where he throws for 5 touchdown passes against somebody like Indiana or Western Kentucky, and he looks like the next C.J. Stroud, etc. But I'm not convinced that he's to that level yet, Shawn. I mean, we'll wait and see. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to see that, but like you said, going into South Bend early in the year, you know, what is he going to show up? We're going to learn a lot about him right then and there.
Yeah, no doubt. I think Ohio State in the past, really since the early days of Urban Meyer, I think they've earned the benefit of the doubt when it comes to quarterbacks. They won a national championship with their third string quarterback in Cardell Jones. And that's just kind of what they do. And they have a system. And if you could, execute that system, it's very quarterback friendly. You're always going to have great wide receivers. Your line, which I'm a bit iffy on with them this year, we'll get to that. And you usually have a good running back next to you. So, and just your overall talent is usually so much better than everybody else in the Big Ten, not named Michigan and Ohio State. So that also helps. And yeah, McCord, Penn State recruited him. Penn State also recruited Marvin Harrison Jr. They were high school teammates. And, I liked him as a quarterback prospect, but we've never seen him play before. And they're breaking in and anytime you do break in a new quarterback, I mean, it's not just written in stone that Ohio State's going to pit that their quarterback's going to be good, but you have to acknowledge their track record of having their quarterbacks ready for prime time, because that's just what they've done.
Yeah, and again, I think we talked to some of the offensive weapons at receiver, and tight end, but also they bring back Travion Henderson, who really didn't have a good year last year, was kind of banged up for a lot of it after having a really good year freshman year. We told you this last year. If you were here last year, we both really liked Mayan Williams, and he ended up having a really good year, 15 touchdowns on the year. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he got banged up during the Penn State game, but I think he got banged up during the Georgia game too. In his career, he's averaging 6.7 yards per carry. So there's going to be plenty of weapons around Kyle McCord to kind of figure it out. I do want to talk about the offensive line, though, because that is the second reason that I'm a little bit skeptical of what Ohio State's going to be. Because if they can't protect Kyle McCord, I mean, it could be an ugly sight. We don't even know how good he's going to be. I mean, they lose right tackle DeJuan Jones, they lose left tackle Paris Johnson, and then they lose their center as well. So they bring back both of their guards, and then they have Josh Fryer, who is kind of like their sixth man that will probably play at the left offensive tackle spot. And they bring in Josh Simmons, that's a San Diego State transfer. So they've got a couple guys coming in, but to me, Shawn, no knock on San Diego State, which, by the way, they're going to stay in the Mountain West. I don't know if you saw that or not, but no disrespect to San Diego State, but if I'm Ohio State and I'm relying on a Mountain West offensive tackle to fill a hole, that to me is a little bit alarming. No, I mean, again, no knock here, but the place that is recruiting at the level Ohio State is to potentially have to patch a hole like that, especially when they knew Paris Johnson and DeJuan Jones were going to be going to the NFL. So I'm just interested to see what happens. And again, are they going to be good enough offensive line-wise to win most of their games? Yes. But you start looking at a Penn State game, which this is a Penn State podcast, and you start to like that matchup a little bit more if you're a Penn State fan. You start to think, okay, Tom Robinson's going up against a guy who didn't start last year. Adisa Isaac's going to go up against a guy that might have been playing in the Mountain West if it wasn't for the transfer portal. And then, you can work your way in from there. Maybe I start to like that a little bit more if I'm a Penn State fan. And you mentioned we were texting back and forth, and it's a good point. The last time Penn State beat Ohio State, they were able to get after the quarterback very successfully. A Herculean experience by Evan Shawn and Garrett Sickles, which I really don't understand where that came from. Brandon Bell, Jason Kabinda as well, which, again, they have Abdul Carter, Curtis Jacobs, plenty of blitzing linebackers that can get there as well. It makes you feel a little bit better going up against Ohio State, given maybe I don't want to call it a hole on Ohio State's offense, but maybe just a little bit weaker than it usually is at quarterback and also the offensive tackles positions.
Yeah. I mean, they had probably the best offensive tackle combination in college football last season. Paris Johnson and Dwan Jones, they both have the ability to be starting offensive tackles in the NFL, and it really helped them, especially in our game last year against them. I mean, I think we only had one sack. It was or one or two sacks. I think one of them might have been a Johnny Dixon blitz at the end of, or he might have hurried him. But anyway, our defensive ends were pretty neutralized the entire game, and I don't think it's going to be the case this season. And if you're Penn State, it can't be the case. Like our ends have to be able to get home if we're going to beat them. And yeah, I mean, the last time we beat them was really the last time our defensive ends had a day against Ohio State. And it was probably the first, well, maybe not the first time, but the last time that I've seen Penn State's defensive line win the game against Ohio State. And I think they had the potential to do that this year. And they're going to have to.
2 sacks. You were correct. Johnny Dixon did sack him. I think, did he kind of fall a little bit? I don't know. And then Abdul Carter got a sack as well.
Yeah, it was that weird thing at the end of the second quarter where they were trying to.
Yeah, they messed that up bad. That was very greedy of them. That was to be honest with you, that was like a young Ryan Day coaching moment, right? Like right before the half.
That's kind of stuff he does, yeah.
Right before the half, you take your points in an environment like that, and you go into the half. You don't give a bunch of momentum heading to the locker room like that. That reminded me almost of 2017 when we were out at Iowa, and they had that interception right before the half. And you're just like, that's not what you don't want to get the home team believing in the upset going into the locker room. That's not what you want to do there. So that worked out really well for Penn State. Matthew Jones and Donovan Jackson are the 2 guards there that I wanted to mention. I want to talk defense though, because to me, like they're gonna have a good offense. They have so many weapons there, like they're gonna score a bunch of points. But defense is a little bit more interesting to me because. And I really want to like focus on the secondary because they have Denzel Burke, who is good, really good, and will play in the NFL good, but maybe hasn't lived quite up to the expectation yet. And then they had J.K. Johnson, who transferred to LSU, so they lost him. And then they bring in Ole Miss transfer Davison Igbinosun. That's my best guess at that word. So we'll see how good he is. And then do bring back Lathan Ransom and Josh Proctor, who Josh Proctor is very good as well. But again, not a bunch of production as far as like passes defended stats go. And so I really think the secondary is the place to kind of watch. You know, they run such a 4-2-5, attacking 4-2-5. I think Shawn likes to call it all the time. And I think sometimes it leaves those guys out on islands, and it just, I don't know. Maybe they don't trust the front 7 enough, and they're kind of creeping in the backfield, and they're getting burned over the top. I'm not really sure, but I think the secondary has to improve if Ohio State wants to reach the goals they want to reach. Good news for Penn State, though, is, again, Sean Clifford threw for 371 yards against pretty much the same secondary. Maybe even, we don't know yet, but maybe even a smidgen worse. And the interceptions that he had, I don't know if any of them were to the actual defensive backs or turnovers. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So anyway, I'm just thinking secondary is a spot to definitely watch. If you're Penn State, you feel kind of good about it. And then Shawn, the linebackers, I guess from a veteran perspective, if you're an Ohio State you're okay with, right? You got Katron Allen's buddy, Tommy Eichenberg, who had 120 tackles and 12 TFLs. Did have a huge missed tackle in that Penn State Ohio State game. Katron Allen just weight roomed him into the end zone. for the touchdown. And then they do bring back Steele Chambers, who had 77 tackles last year. So, and then Cody Simon's a name you should really know and get used to. But Shawn, how do you feel about Mr. Tommy Eichenberg?
When I watched, he's good. He's good. When I watched him get run through by Jaytron Allen, it was very reminiscent to me of Manti Te'o getting run over by Alabama's running backs. And I mean that was the first time when I saw Manti Te'o that I was like, maybe this guy isn't as good as people are saying he is. And it was sort of an alarm bell for me. And that was a little bit of an alarm bell for me with Tommy Eichenberg. I think he's pretty good. Would I take him on the team? Sure. But like, I know PFF had him as a preseason all Big Ten guy. I don't see that. Like, and they only named 2 linebackers to their all defense team. I would take Abdul Carter over him. And Abdul Carter might not have the gaudy stats. He only started part of the year last season, but he just makes so much more of an impact on your game. Tommy Eichenberg, he'll get a lot of tackles. He had over 70 solo tackles last year. That's nothing to sneeze at. But I don't see an impact guy with him. I see a guy that gets a lot of stats, and those could be. There could be some empty calories in there. So he's good, but that's kind of what I think with him.
I like calling that empty calories. I think that's an interesting one. But yeah, he's good. He's going to play in the NFL, I'm sure. Had 15 tackles last year against Penn State, but I don't really remember him, like you said, making that crazy impact. And if you're telling me I can put Penn State's tight ends on him in the passing game, I'm excited about that. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think when they ran the trot line formation out wide, then they threw the pass on 4th and 1 to Ty Warren, I think Eichenberg was covering him. I'm not positive, but I think Eichenberg was covering him. I almost had something wrong with the computer there for a second. Yes. Now, as you get closer and closer to the line of scrimmage, Shawn, it gets more and more impressive with Ohio State. They did lose Javonte Jean-Baptiste to Notre Dame, which is pretty interesting that he could be sacking his own former teammate in a couple months. And they do lose defensive end Zach Harrison, big time, Penn State really wanted Zach Harrison. Again, no knock on Zach Harrison, because I think he had a better year last year than previous years. I don't think Zach Harrison ever really bloomed the way I think they were hoping him to. Like, he didn't turn into a Noah Spence. He didn't turn into a Boza. He was good, but he wasn't ever crazy, amazing, game-wrecking, crazy good, like maybe JT Tuimoloau ended up being. And JTT is back, and so is defensive end 5-star Jack Sawyer, who's going to play a lot more. Jack Sawyer is another guy that's been around for a decent bit, being a 5-star guy. So it'll be interesting to see if he now makes his name for himself as a starter. But they're so good at the defensive end position, so much talent there. Defensive tackle, got to be careful about Michael Hall Jr. He's very good too. They're going to be good at the defensive end position, regardless of who's there, because of who's coaching there. But that's probably, again, to me, Shawn, it kind of lines up better than usual for Penn State, though. Good defensive ends, got it. Well, Penn State actually has probably their best 2 offensive tackles they've had at the same time in how many years? Now, you can say what you want about, why can't I think of his name?
Caden Wallace?
Yes, thank you. I almost said someone way not Caden Wallace. But obviously Olu Fashanu is gonna do his own thing. So I don't know, Shawn. I think they match up pretty well against Ohio State this year. That's pretty much all I wanted to say on the Buckeyes.
Yeah, there are a lot of favorable matchups. Like you said, JTT is back. Now, I'd also remind everybody, JTT was kind of seen as a little disappointing in Buckeye land until that Penn State explosion where he just took the game over. I mean, they don't beat us last year without him. And, tip of the cap to him. Anytime a guy does that to you, you're not going to underestimate him. And you're expecting him to make a big impact this year. And
can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
2022 season for JTT ended the season with 16 solo tackles, 3.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 2 interceptions. So just keep that in mind. So what I just said there, he had 6 of those tackles against Penn State. He had 2 of those 3.5 sacks against Penn State. He had the forced fumble and the 2 interceptions against Penn State. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games where he didn't even register a sack. And there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games where he had less than 3 tackles. So he literally made all of his money against Penn State. Didn't do anything against Georgia. Didn't do anything against Notre Dame. Just one game, basically. But it was a really important one.
Yeah, it was. I don't know why he couldn't do it against anybody else, but anybody who does that, I mean,
wow,
they at least gain your respect, and they showed that you're capable of doing that. And he didn't do it against Rutgers. He didn't do it against, Youngstown State. He did it against Penn State. And I know, Big Slab. We all love Big Slab here. Not the most talented guy in the world, but I mean, he wasn't a slouch, and he just manhandled them, and it was ugly. It was ugly there. I would remind people though, Caden Wallace was out that game, and maybe if we have Caden Wallace, maybe that doesn't happen.
Let us know. Let us know on YouTube as well what your thoughts are on Ohio State. You maybe a little bit more skeptical of Ohio State this year, and let us know. Shawn, wrap up.
You're good. You're good. And I share your opinion of Jack Sawyer. I was actually expecting a lot more from him last year, and but his big year might be this year. And the one thing I could tell you, if you have something in you, Larry Johnson's going to bring it out of you. And I fully expect those guys to both take a step forward this year. And that could potentially spell bad news for us. Good thing we have the best left tackle in college football, though. That's why you got him for games
It makes things a little bit better. That's for sure. Let's just wake everyone up a little bit for a second here. I think YouTube heard it well, but I don't think the podcast got it as clean as it usually is. Christoph on YouTube says, I would like to be more skeptical, but they just substitute talent with more talent. Fair enough. You ready to talk Indiana and Maryland? You're muted still.
One more thing on Ohio State.
Okay.
I remember being in Vermont last year. That's where I did the Ohio State preview. And just researching Ohio State and being like, man, oh man, this is such a horrible matchup for us. And this year, as I'm going through them, and obviously they're an impressive group, I have a lot less doom and gloom. And made me feel kind of okay. And it was the first time, like, I know Ohio State pretty well, but it was the first time I really looked at them in depth. And I got to say, like, this is probably our best chance to beat them since 2017. So, got to go do it. Like, this, I think this is the year to go do it if we're going to, especially if we're going to do it in Columbus. So, we are.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's some good points there. Yeah. I like the defensive ends versus their offensive line, to be honest with you. Like, I like Manny Diaz versus a quarterback that maybe doesn't have the same amount of experience. Like, those things get me more excited. Obviously, you can turn that around and say Jim Knowles versus Drew Aller could get Ohio State excited too. Like, I get that. But who knows? We'll see. Anyway, it was fun. It really felt like the season was getting close looking up Ohio State stuff. So that's always good. Let's go Indiana next. Big Tom Allen fan here. And Shawn, did you know this is Tom Allen's 8th year as head coach of Indiana already? Can you believe that?
I think I read that, yeah. That seems like he just got there. Is that his 8th year as a head coach?
At Indiana, yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Indiana, not doing very well. Last 25 games, they are 6-19. And of those 6 wins, Shawn, 2 of them are against Idaho, and 2 of them are against Western. Sorry. Pause. Rewind 1 second. Want to say one last thing on Ohio State. Watch the Ohio State-Western Kentucky game, because Western Kentucky is going to throw the ball all over the place, and it will be a good test for that Ohio State secondary. So just tune into that. Okay, now let me go back.
I like that.
Indiana, 6 wins, 2 of them against Idaho, 2 of them against Western Kentucky in the last 25 games. Not great there. Remember that 2020 magical season? It hasn't been anywhere close to that since then. Worse in the Big Ten in total defense, pass defense, tackles for loss allowed, time of possession, and yards per completion. So they just really couldn't do anything right. But I like 3 things about this Indiana team. Number 1, they bring in a bunch of transfers. A bunch of what I think are actually some pretty good transfers. Low-key good transfers. Number 2, they hired offensive line coach Bob Bobstad, who coached with Wisconsin for 12 years as an offensive line coach. So Indiana's going to be holding everybody. It's going to be fantastic. And then number 3, they hired Matt Gutierrez, who I believe was an assistant at Ohio State for a little bit, to call the defense. So Tom Allen's not calling the defense anymore. He got someone in to call the defense. They got a new offensive line coach because their offensive line was just so bad. If you go back and watch the Indiana-Michigan game and watch Michigan's defensive line just destroy Indiana's offensive line the entire day. Not much better when Penn State got to do it either. But anyway, those are the 3 things just right off the bat, Shawn, that I do like. They have a big game against Louisville in the non-conference. Louisville is like a low-key. People like Louisville this year to make some moves. So if Indiana can find a way to beat Louisville, that'd be big time. But those are my first preliminary thoughts, Shawn.
So it's definitely Louisville and not Louisville.
It's Louisville.
Louisville.
Yeah, no Louis. Louisville.
Louisville. Okay.
Yep. That's how they say it down south, at least.
All right. I'll take that. Yeah. It's been a tough time for the Hoosiers, and I think I've mentioned this on a previous podcast, but I'll reiterate it again. Indiana, the school does not care much at all about the football program. Like, this is probably the worst place to coach in the Big Ten. And I know there was some debate, especially with Pat Fitzgerald getting fired, about, was that the worst job? And I think this is how bad it was. Tom Allen couldn't hire, had to Tom Allen had to pay out of pocket for a coordinator. I mean, that's unheard of. That's Mickey Mouse league stuff. I mean, you don't do that if you're a serious football program. Yeah, I think their hires in the offseason, though, I'll back Cory up on that. Bob Bostad.
It is hard to say.
Yeah, what were his parents thinking? Just go by Robert.
He could be Robert Robstad or Robert Robertstad.
If he was Robert, he'd switch the B with an R for Rostad. Anyway, yeah, they needed him because that was probably the worst offensive line we played last year. It just felt like every other play it was a sack, and it's going to be tough sledding in the Big Ten. They randomly lost Jack Tuttle to Michigan. I don't really know what happened there. But I think they could actually potentially see an upgrade at quarterback this year with Taven Jackson.
Jack Tuttle just seems like a Michigan quarterback, though, so it makes sense some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it does, especially like just a random backup.
He played Penn State while he was in the transfer portal.
Yeah, he did. I remember talking about that with you, and I was like, yeah, this is this new thing that goes on that guys playing while they're in the portal. Cam Camper's back. We both like Cam Camper. I think that really hurt their offense last year when they lost him. They lost. He did not play against Penn State, and that really that just took the wind out of their sails. And they like to throw the ball around the yard. That's kind of been a staple since the Kevin Wilson days out there. And they didn't have the horses to do that last year. When you don't have the guys to run that style, it's basically you'll complete a pass for 2 yards on a bubble screen and then throw 2 more incompletions, and you took a grand total of 40 seconds off the clock and you're punting again. And that is not fun to watch.
That you know what? During that Indiana game last year, they dropped a bunch of footballs too. I feel like they dropped a bunch of passes, and that you're right. That doesn't help things for your defense. So that's a good point. Yeah, I did like Cam Camper. He has an ACL tear, so we'll see how he comes back from that.
Yeah, and they're definitely gonna need him. And if on offense, I think it's all about getting that quarterback situation straight and hopefully fixing the offensive line. And like I said, when that air attack is working, I mean it's a fun offense to watch, but you got to be able to be clicking everywhere in your offense, or it gets ugly quick. You want to talk a little bit about the defense?
Let me just real quick add, because I don't want to spend as much time, obviously, on Indiana that we did at Ohio State. I just wanted to add Matthew Bedford, really good right tackle. They bring in Max Longman, a UMass transfer at offensive line. Jalen Lucas, name to know, really fast guy, good returner. I think he's going to be involved quite a bit this year for them. And then 2 other former 4-stars that they have, Omar Cooper at wide receiver and E.J. Williams at wide receiver. So they might actually have some formidable weapons on the outside to do something. So, I mean, they ended up winning 4 games last year, Shawn, and I thought they were horrendous. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think this year's team potentially could be a lot better. And I'm not saying that this year's team's going to be good, but I just think they were so awful last year that I think their offense could be so much better than it was last year, because last year they were just terrible. But, I mean, 2 more wins, they can get to bowl eligibility. I mean, their offense is going to be better than it was last year to maybe get them to 2 more wins. I mean, their offense was just awful last year. And then, like you said, their best player, Cam Camper, gets hurt. I mean, for a team like – it's not like Penn State, it's not like Ohio State where you have other really good players. You got one really amazing game changer. You don't have them, you're going to be in deep trouble. And anyway, their offense, Josh Henderson at running back. And then they have a Christian Turner, Wake Forest transfer to pay attention to at running back as well. So, but Jalen Lucas, if you can remember one thing when we play Indiana, Jalen Lucas. But now we can talk defense.
Yeah, they. I remember the Michigan game last year. They were just force feeding Jalen Locust the ball, just trying to get him out in space, and that was really their offense the second half of the season. So, but yeah, I did like what they did a little bit in the portal this past season. Yeah, on defense, like you said, new guy calling the plays. Tom Allen actually took over the play calling last year on defense. Didn't really work. I was pretty unimpressed by their defense overall. Yeah, and Aaron Casey, he's back at linebacker. Pretty good player there, and they focused heavily on the transfer portal to rebuild their defensive line. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of new faces for this team in general, especially on defense, because they focus so heavily on the transfer portal, and now they're going to have a new defensive play caller. So, I mean, it's one of those deals, like you said. Like last year, we pretty much knew going in that Indiana was going to be pretty bad, and they do have the unfortunate reality of playing in the Big Ten East, where you have to play Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan every year. But the thing is, like, I'm not expecting Michigan State to be anything special. Rutgers is Rutgers, and that's probably going to be a winnable game. And I don't trust Maryland any farther than I could throw Mike Loxley. So, yeah, I could see 6 wins. I really could.
I could too, Shawn. I could too. And I love Tom Allen. So I will say this about their defense. Their defensive line is going to be much better than last year. We talked about the defensive tackle J.H. Tevis before. I think he transferred last year. Really like him. They bring in Andre Carter, the defensive line, Western Michigan transfer. He's in his 6th year, so you got some experience there. They also bring in defensive tackle Philip Belidi from Texas Tech. So you got some options there. Now, this is a common thing that's going to keep popping up as we preview some of these lower tier teams. They lose their best players. Like they lost Dasan McCullough to Oklahoma, and that was like their best player. Like he's a stud. He's going to be a really good linebacker for Oklahoma. That sucks, in my opinion. Like that sucks about the transfer portal, because if they had him on this defense, I'm feeling pretty good about their defense, because I think they have a really formidable front four. And then they have Aaron Casey, who was actually their leading tackler last year. If they had McCullough, you'd feel pretty good about that front seven all of a sudden. And you really needed to feel good about the front seven because the secondary is awful. They lost 4 guys in the secondary. They lost Tywan Mullen, who 2 years ago was fantastic for them at the corner spot. They lost another corner, Christopher Keys, to Mississippi State. They're bringing in 2 guys from Stanford, 1 linebacker, and Jacob Magnum Ferris, I think is how you say it. I can't read my own handwriting, who had 85 tackles for Stanford at linebacker. And they're also bringing in a corner, Nicholas Toomer from Stanford, and another corner in Jamler Johnson from Texas. So they're bringing in a bunch of transfers. We'll see how they pay off for them. But they lost a lot in the secondary. And then, of course, losing Dasan really, really stinks. So I want to feel good about it, but they're going to have probably 7 new defenders in the defense, along with a new guy calling the shots with the play calling, like you said. So we'll have to wait and see. But, Shawn, I'm with you. Just to wrap it up one more time, I think 6 wins is 100% possible for Tom Allen's crew. I mean, I'm going to be optimistic about it because I want to see Indiana do well. And they're going to really, you could argue Maryland and Indiana, 2 teams we're going to be talking about right now today, are really going to benefit when they go away from divisions moving forward. Like Maryland, if they're in the West, we're talking about Maryland potentially winning the West maybe. If they're at least in the conversation. Indiana, what would they have been after that 2020 year if they were in the West versus if they were just beat back down in the East? I don't know. It's fun to think about. Any other final thoughts on Indiana before we get to my favorite football team besides Penn State?
Well, I mean, yeah, just looking at their schedule, their crossovers kind of tough. They got Wisconsin, Illinois, and Purdue. I mean, they'll probably beat Purdue. Don't know about Indiana or Wisconsin, but or Illinois or Wisconsin, excuse me. I think they randomly beat Illinois last year, though. So you never know
Yes,
what could happen.
they did.
Yeah, and then out of conference, yeah, like you said, they play the Louisville Cardinals, and yeah, I could see 6 wins. Maybe I'll be optimistic. Maybe I'm in a good mood today. Maybe I'll say they get 6 wins, but I don't know about beating your Nittany Lions. So.
Are you gonna be optimistic about Maryland too?
No, they suck.
Okay, Shawn, you're gonna have to hear it one more time. Just remind me again about Maryland and Michigan State last year, and who you thought was gonna be the fourth best team in the Big Ten East.
You're the only person on planet Earth that remembers that, besides me, because you remind me all the time. Yes, Maryland was better than Michigan State.
You taking Maryland to be better than Michigan State this year? Should I record this?
Wait till we preview Michigan State.
Okay, fair enough.
Yep. Because I want to take a better look at them.
Okay, that's fair. 8-5 last year was Maryland. 4-5 in the Big Ten. Mike Loxley's been at Maryland for 5. Will be his 5th year. So, kind of crazy in my opinion. They actually play Michigan State. We should just call that the Hardcore Penn State Football Bowl. They play Michigan State to open the Big Ten schedule on September 23rd. So we'll know early, baby, on who's the better team. They're looking for back-to-back winning seasons for the first time since 2013-2014. So it's been a little bit for them.
Back-to-back wins against Sparty, too.
Oh, really? Nice. Good pull. They bring in Kevin Sumlin and former Penn State wide receivers coach Josh Gaddis. So they've got some experienced former play callers there to help them out. 5 seconds, Shawn. What are your thoughts on Kevin Sumlin? Keep it short. I don't think we ever talked about Kevin Sumlin before on the show.
We have not. Well, fun fact for you, I kind of think Johnny Manziel was a little overrated in college. So,
okay.
Good play caller, but I wouldn't want him as my head coach.
Okay, fair enough. Fun stat for you. Again, I think this comes from College Football News, I'm pretty sure. Not including playoff teams, which I'm pretty sure would just be Ohio State and Michigan, Maryland averaged only allowing 6 points in the second half of their games against everybody else, which is pretty damn impressive. So, second half team last year for Maryland, maybe?
That is a fun stat. And God, we didn't do much at all against them in the second half.
No.
Last year. I mean, it was a monsoon, like the skies completely opened up, but yeah, our offense totally stalled in the second half against them.
Right. That's my fun fact for you. Yeah. I gave you actually quite a bit of fun facts, so you're welcome for that. Shawn, let's talk offense first. What you got?
Yeah, like you said, they bring in 2 good offensive minds. I'll give them that. Kevin Sumlin and Josh Gaddis, and Mike Loxley himself. I never took that away from him. I mean, he was the offensive coordinator, I believe, on a national championship Alabama team. So, I mean, that speaks for itself. Talia Tagovailoa, my guy Tua, his brother, he's coming back this season. Second team All Big Ten last year, had 51 touchdowns total in his college career, and really made a nice career for himself at Maryland. I will say he tends to struggle against better teams, against better defenses. And that's that's been the rub with him. Roman Hemby, he's a guy you're going to hear his name a lot when they play Penn State. You're going to hear his name a lot during the season. Had a very good freshman campaign last year. He had 10 touchdowns and third among all college football freshmen with 1,287 yards from scrimmage last year. So big thing that we're going to be trying to do with him is, limit his impact on the game. I think he played last year against us, right? He was in there, right? Or was he hurt?
I'm not sure. I can't remember. I feel like he didn't play.
Yeah, I want to say he was injured because either that or he was a complete non-factor, but I think I remember him being injured. Shawn Jones is their leading wide receiver coming back. They could always throw the ball, Maryland. I mean, and I expect that to continue with.
Just to interject real quick, he did play 13 carries, 68 yards. So he did average 5.2 yards per carry.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Only one catch, though, for no yards. So overall, did pretty good against him. Held him to 68 total yards.
Yeah. I mean, he was the biggest part. He was kind of the spark plug of their offense last season. For Maryland, though, if I were a Maryland fan, I would worry. Well, I'd worry about their late season collapse. That's inevitably going to happen. But I would worry. I'd worry about their offensive line.
How do you prepare for the collapse?
You just do. You're just like, well, here it comes. It's getting a little colder when the leaves start to fall. So does Maryland. So that's sort of what I'm expecting again, because that's what Mike Loxley gives us every year around the time you turn the clocks back. So
did you mention Prather?
Oh yeah, Caden Prather. So he was transfer portal guy. Penn State was after him. Very, very talented transfer guy. I was hoping Penn State would be able to bring him in. Obviously, didn't liked him in when he was a recruit as well. So he's going to be joining Maryland's receiving corps this year. So I do think they'll be able to put some points up against some teams, but I'm not sure Penn State's going to be one of those teams they're able to put points up on.
I don't know if Penn State offered Jyreese Chambers from FIU. I feel like they did. 96.
I remember the name. Yeah.
1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns in 2 years at FIU. He's a littler guy, if I remember correctly, but still impressive. They also offered that one guy from USF that ended up at Colorado. But anyway, you're going to talk offensive line. Oh, I want to mention they lost a tight end to Alabama in the transfer portal. You're going to talk offensive line next, which is great. I wanted to mention they bring in a transfer offensive lineman, Gottlieb Aidezi. Gosh, I'm just awful with names. I'm sorry. But he is from a college that I had not heard of until the other day. Frostburg State. Have you heard of Frostburg State before?
No, where's that at?
It's in Maryland, Frostburg, Maryland. So if anyone's from Frostburg, Maryland, I will give you $5. Just let me know. Actually, if someone is a Frostburg alum, I will give you $5.
Yeah, there are a lot of funky names, especially out. Like I was thinking, it might have been a Western PA thing because
I was thinking it was like Minnesota or like, you know what I mean? Like you think Frostburg, you're thinking like
because Frost, yeah.
Frost.
Yeah, like
the other side of the Game of Thrones north wall or something.
Right. Yeah, I could see Minnesotans talking in their Sarah Palin sounding accent going, oh, up to Frostburg, you know.
Sarah Palin's not from Minnesota.
I know, but she talks like she's from Minnesota.
You betcha. It could be from Alaska, too. Anyway, I thought that was funny. I assume you were going to mention offensive tackle Delmar Glaze, which is just a great name. He's a good tackle. But yeah, I mean, if any Penn State fan has to feel good about their defensive line versus Maryland's just based off of last year. Like, Tagovailoa just ran for his life. You know what I'm not looking forward to, though, and I'm sorry I have to bring this up. I am not looking forward to the inevitable guarantee that Matt Millen calls that game.
You know we will.
You know it's going to be him. You know he's going to get that game. Oh, as I go down.
Yep. Yeah, 3:30 BTN kickoff. There he is. Mustache man himself.
You know, and he's not going to still be able to say Tagovailoa to save his life. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we love Matt, but him announcing games.
That seriously makes me want to like tear up. That is just the funniest thing, thinking about how you know he's going to call that game. Like you said, 4 new offensive linemen that they're going to have this year at Maryland. So, yeah, I think Tagovailoa. I don't even know how he says it. He mixes it up every time, but Tagovailoa is going to be running for his life.
I think the proper pronunciation is Tagovailoa. But it's spelled Tagovailoa. But it's tomato.
You know what? Even if he got as close as I get to it, I would be okay.
Yeah, because that's fine. Yeah.
He doesn't even. I mean, I don't know what.
I don't know why he just doesn't call him Talia.
I don't know.
Like Tua, everybody just calls him Tua. Just call him Talia.
Is it? But maybe I think he calls him Tal. Does he call him Talia too?
Probably does.
Let's talk defense, Shawn, because we got a lot of fan questions to talk about too. Only 5 starters are back. They bring in from St. Francis University Donnell Brown, who had 10.5 sacks and 23 TFLs in 2 years at San Francisco. They also bring in Jordan Phillips, a defensive tackle from Tennessee. And so they got some options there. Andrew Redding on YouTube says, I still can't believe somehow that one betting site had Maryland favored over PSU. Like, did you see last year's game? LOL. Yeah, that was weird that for a second they had them favored. Yes. Like recently.
I mean.
Yeah. Give me the money. Oh, yeah. You know what? I really want to mention this.
Some of those betting websites, I don't know what they watch. It's even worse seeing the political bets they make.
You get into political betting, Shawn?
I don't, but I see some of the stuff they say. And
makes you want to get on there a little bit, doesn't it?
Okay.
That's funny.
It does, because I think, like, yeah, some of the stuff I'm like, you're really saying this?
Cornerback Jaquan Shepard, transfer from Cincinnati. I think he's going to be really good. Very good. So pay attention to him. And they also bring in Avante Williams, safety from Miami that I wanted to mention. They did lose a defensive tackle, Messiah Nasili, to Auburn that I wanted to mention. So kind of an unknown on their defense. They're not really known for playing great defense. They do have some good linebackers back. Shawn Barham, very good player there. But to be honest with you, I would be really salty if I was a Maryland fan about Chop Robinson, to be honest with you. I'd be super salty because they just don't have anybody like that you're really afraid of, right? Like, they just don't have anybody. I feel like Maryland always has 1 or 2 good guys in a secondary, like Nick Cross, you know what I mean? Like, but they just, overall, not terrified of them. But anyway, that's what I got for the defense, Shawn. Anything to add?
Yeah, Shawn Barham, he stands out to me. He was a guy that I really wanted a couple of years ago in recruiting, and he had a good season last year as well, with 58 tackles, and he's still a young guy. Where I would worry if I was a Maryland fan on defense is that secondary. It's kind of patched together, and they weren't very good last year. So they gave up a bunch of big plays against teams. They're really prone to that. So as you know, like, and this is kind of an issue with Mike Locksley. Like, okay, you added offensive minds to your offensive room, but first off, you already have yourself, and I will always respect Mike Locksley as an offensive mind. Fix your defense. Like, if you just fix your defense, you're gonna win 8 games. The Big Ten East, yeah, I mean it's tough, but if they, here we go with Michigan State, yeah, if their defense was better, I'm fully expecting them to beat Michigan State this year because I don't think Michigan State's any damn good really. But it's hard to say that because I know how bad their defense could be and how prone to big plays they are. So I'm not feeling particularly great about this Maryland team. I see them as like a 6 or 7 win team. And let me ask you this, Cory: if they're 6-6, do you think Locksley gets canned?
No.
It's got to be that time. You don't think?
No. Nope. Nope.
At that point, I would just feel like, as a fan, I would be like, we're just settling for mediocrity.
No, he's recruiting. Again, I mean, they're doing better than what they have done. I mean, let's say they win 7 games. That'd be back-to-back years again of winning seasons. And it's going to get better when they get out of the Big Ten East. And he's only had like one quarterback throughout that entire time period. It's just been Tagovailoa the entire time. So if they just, I think he's got at least one more quarterback. They are recruiting better. Like they are doing better. So
and that's what Josh Gaddis is going to bring for you. Yeah.
So I would say no. 6-6 is fine. They go 6-6 for a while. I think you don't. Now, does that necessarily give them breathing room? No. I don't know why I'm still on you. I guess I could flip to me. Does that give them breathing room? No. Like if he won 8 games one year, I think that would help quite a bit as far as staying off of the hot seat. But no, I think, they could go 6-6, 7-5 for a long time and probably be fine, to be honest with you. Especially since they've done some good things when out of conference. Like they beat Texas. They do okay. They win their bowl game. I think they beat NC State, right? I think they beat NC State, if I remember correctly. So like they've done some decent things. Yeah, I wouldn't say he's on the hot seat by any stretch. Now, if he wins, like if he loses to Michigan State and he loses to Indiana, that's a different conversation, right? Like let's say he goes 4-8 and he's got a loss to Indiana and a loss to Michigan State. Now that's a whole different conversation. But for now, no.
Okay. I mean, hey, I hope he stays there forever.
Not a big Mike Locksley fan.
Not as a head coach. I do like him as a coordinator. Like if Mike Yurcich left and Locksley got canned, I would say go get Mike Locksley because I respect him like that. But when your team does what seems like the same thing over and over and over again, like at some point, it's on you, buddy. I mean, you got to be able to figure that out. And when you said like Tagovailoa has been there for a while, yeah, I don't even remember who the quarterback was before him. I don't remember.
I honestly couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Maybe it was just him.
You ready for some fan questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
I don't know how I'm going to do it. I think moving forward, I don't think I'm going to put the entire fan question segment up there on YouTube like we did last time, because it ends up being like a 25-minute video. So I think what I'm going to do is like record just bits and pieces of the fan, like maybe a specific fan question or two, and put those maybe smaller segments up there. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So
works for me.
Just if you're curious what I'm thinking here. Bunch of really good fan questions. Thank you for the fan questions again at Hardcore PSU. Oh, shoot. Let's do this real quick. Okay.
Love it.
Yep. Sorry.
Finally got that.
Yep. At Hardcore PSUFB on Twitter. Hey, we're at 5,500 followers on Twitter, so thank you guys for following us there. We're on other social medias as well. Give us your questions, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you want to send them in. We'll get them on here some way, shape, or form. A bunch of questions. I don't even think we got all the questions on here. I asked for fan questions, and I asked Penn State will go 15-0, and I needed a reason why. Regardless of if you think they go 15-0, I wanted a reason for why they would. And so Matty Ice says Penn State will go 15-0 because of their uber talented and aggressive defense, and Drew Aller will maximize the offense, and the offensive line and run game will be one of the top units in college football. It's quite a bit, Shawn, if you ask me. But fair enough. His question, how important do you think Penn State needs to get a highly rated quarterback in 2025 with the recent surge in confidence / excitement in Ethan Grunkemeyer and the Penn State fandom and coaching staff? Well, we've shared that same excitement. We are very high on 2024 quarterback Ethan Grunkemeyer. He's getting trained by the same quarterback coach that Drew Aller is. Can you remind me of his name, Shawn? Do you remember it?
I think it's Brad Mandler.
That sounds right. But yes, we're very high on Ethan Grunkemeyer. So I will say this about this question. You got to get a quarterback in 2025, if not two, because that's just what you got to do. However, you feel a lot better about that 2025 quarterback maybe not having to be the best thing ever. You're going to try to get the best thing ever. Don't get me wrong. But maybe you feel a smidgen better about where you're at as far as having to desperately get somebody because you feel pretty good about Ethan Grunkemeyer. Now, if they didn't get Ethan Grunkemeyer, which, I mean, the class isn't over yet, then maybe you feel a little bit worse about what you need to do desperately in 2025. But, Shawn, I feel like right now you try to get the best you can, but there is probably maybe, I mean, the coaches would never admit this, but maybe in the back of your mind, you at least feel comfortable knowing you got Drew Aller for 2 years and then potentially Ethan Grunkemeyer for another 2 after that. So,
yeah, I mean they're in all likelihood set up nicely, but yeah, I mean you have to always be aggressive and always looking for that top guy, and you know it's the nature of college football. Like, let's say we're here in 2 years, and hopefully Aller is off to the NFL because he lights it up here. And Bo Pagula gets the job. Well, then Grunk's probably gone, and he might never play at Penn State, and it's just because Bo was that good. So then, yeah, if you don't get a top guy in 2025, you could really be hurting in come a few years from now. So I still think it's always important, no matter what, to get the best quarterback that you possibly can, because you just don't know what's going to happen. And I know we don't ever want to be in that place again like we were out at Iowa with Saquon Roberson. Sorry, bad memories.
just had to go there, didn't you? You just had to go there. Our scats, which, by the way, lots of people have been putting in questions lately, so we appreciate that. But a lot of consistent question askers, so we appreciate you guys as well. Our scats about 15-0 says offensive line takes a giant leap, thus everything else falls into place. 15-0 offensive line to the goal line. His question, Shawn, do you think any other Big Ten teams are underrated or overrated? Before you answer this, I thought it would be more fun if, instead of like running through these in like a normal fashion, where you would just tell me one overrated or one underrated, I thought it'd be more fun if I just list off the team and you just gave me, you have to choose overrated or underrated for all of these teams.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so overrated, underrated Big Ten teams. Indiana.
Underrated.
Agree. Maryland.
I'll say overrated, but I feel like they're rated. I feel like everybody knows what they are.
Okay, fair enough. Michigan State.
Potentially underrated.
Michigan.
Underrated.
I agree. Ohio State.
Overrated.
Rutgers.
Again, probably properly rated, but I guess I'll go underrated. Greg Schiano, you never know. You never know what he could do. I could see them getting 7 wins.
I'm more interested in the Big Ten West. This will be good. Illinois.
Underrated.
Iowa.
Overrated.
Minnesota.
Slightly overrated.
Don't be adding words. Nebraska.
Underrated.
Northwestern.
Matt Rowe believer. Well, I think
Just a
people
mess.
thinking they're going to go in 12, so I'll go underrated just because 1-11 is better than 0-12, or 2-10 is better than 1-11.
Purdue.
Maybe I'll go underrated. You never know.
I think just off of their hype from coming off of the Big Ten West Championship, I would say, or
Yeah,
Big Ten,
and I feel
I'd say
like-
overrated.
I just feel like nobody's expecting them to do anything.
That's true.
And,
Fair enough.
You know, they're coming off, like you said, they won the Big Ten West. I know, a bit like being the tallest kid in kindergarten. But it means something. They have guys there that somewhat know how to win. So, and in the Big Ten West, they might fool around and win some more games than you think.
Okay. Wisconsin.
Overrated.
Penn
I
State.
am not on the. Oh. Underrated.
Okay.
Over-under's 9.5.
That's a good question. Thank you, R. Scats, for that. I thought that would be a fun way to do that. Yeah.
How about you?
I agreed to pretty much most of those.
Okay, cool.
Thought you did a pretty good job. This is from Grant Lachat, who we haven't had a question from him for a while, but he's been listening to us since before the season started last year. So, long-time listener of the show. If you had to name a position room that no one else is talking about for good or bad reasons, that has the potential to be a bright spot coming out of training camp, which position would you pick? And then his 15-0 reasoning was the team puts up 40-plus points in the Ohio State and Michigan games. So, Shawn, you got to find a room that is going to be a bright spot that somebody is or isn't talking about.
I'm going to go receivers. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the receiver room. Understandably so. We lost our 2 top receivers from last season. And I just think there's a lot of question marks. But I think we're going to be fine. I really do. The closer we get to the season, the better I feel about them. I feel a little bit better after watching the blue-white game. And yet, I know you take everything with a grain of salt in the blue-white game, but Omari Evans and Drew Aller, they have a natural chemistry. And you saw it going back to the Ohio game. And I think they're going to continue that. I think that DeCephas is going to do a lot for that room with Keandre Lambert-Smith. And I've always said if Keandre Lambert-Smith could just put it all together and get consistent, he's going to be an NFL receiver. So I think we're going to be all right there.
That's a good one. I was going to go tight ends, but since you went offense, I'll go defense. And I will say defensive tackle. I think there's just so much harping. I think everyone just has like Michigan seared into their brain right now. And we told you guys so many times that, yes, it would help to get a little bit bigger, but it was a schematic issue more than anything. And you can't get behind against Michigan. And anyway, I think there's just so much of that Michigan game in there that people forget that, like, they still played really well at times, defensive tackles specifically. And I think they have a lot more depth than people realize. So I think Hakeem Beamon is really special. I think Keziah Izzard is really special, and I think they have a lot of depth behind them. Christoph said, did you see the Curtis Jacobs interview on Blue White Illustrated? I actually haven't seen that yet, but he said that Curtis Jacobs thinks that Dante Cephas is the real dude. So I think that was a live interview. I don't know if that was last night or I think it was last Thursday, maybe. But I haven't watched that yet. But I probably will tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out too.
But thank you for that. Yes, says he's a real dude. So hopefully he's a real dude. He's not like Pinocchio. Oh no, he doesn't say real dude. He said that dude. I'm sorry. I'm putting words in his mouth now. But anyway, okay. I do want to record this one because I think this is a really good one. This is from longtime listener Einstein von Braun, Mister. His 15-0 comment was, "We will go 15-0 because the stars are aligning, and it's been almost 30 years since 1994." Fair enough. His question: if you can take one, let me just start over because I was just butchering. His question reads: if you can take one tradition from another school and completely make it into Penn State's, what would it be? For me, we would have a live mountain lion involved somehow, similar to Bevo or Uga. I don't think I would necessarily go that route, but fair enough. I don't think you could have like a little doghouse for a mountain lion like they do for Uga. I think he gets driven around in like an air-conditioned limo and everything. Shawn, I don't know if you've had a thought on this question, but I can go first.
Go ahead.
I would just say I would really like if Penn State had a cool way to start the fourth quarter every game. Just a song that is like really specific to Penn State that's become like a true tradition. Like Wisconsin's got the jump around. So I guess this isn't really taking one, but just I wish there was a specific song that was just only Penn State did. It wasn't Sweet Caroline. Something that was just unique to only Penn State. I Won't Back Down at Florida. Dixieland Delight. I just wish there was something specific like that only Penn State did. I don't know what that song would be, but I think that would be cool. Maybe it should be the Edmund Fitzgerald song.
You love that Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yes, I do. What about you, Shawn?
I would just keep it simple, and I want a painted end zone. I think we have the most boring end zones in the country. Just a blue end zone, white letters. Looks awesome. Had it in 1982. Good thing happened that year. They won the national championship. Bring it back. I want a blue end zone.
Did you like the diamonds?
Diamonds are cool.
Diamonds
are cool. If we went full time to the diamonds, I'd be fine. But I mean, I just think we have, like I said, one of the most boring end zones in the country. There's no panache to them at all.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that or not. I mean, I agree that they're not the most exciting end zones. Would you want like a Penn State version of Tennessee's checkerboard end zones?
Those are cool. And, that's unique to Tennessee. Yeah, again, just something simple. Just a blue background that says Penn State. Maybe even bring back the bubble letters and put it in a blue background.
Get Shawn on the phone with the creative team ASAP for Penn State.
Yeah, the turf management school.
Yes. All right. This question is from Cowboy Ribeye, another longtime listener. All the we were going to go live today, and all the longtime listeners came out of the woodwork for this. This from Cowboy Ribeye. Do you think they will unleash Drew Aller and see what he can do early, or will they be more conservative? Positives potentially for both, but I think you don't really know what you have until you let it fly. Any thoughts there, Shawn?
Yeah. I mean, I think they at some point they're going to unleash him. But it's kind of like driving a Ferrari, right? Or driving a standard, and most of those are standard vehicles. And if you've ever driven a standard before, if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to stall out a lot. And I don't want to see us just going willy-nilly with Drew and opening up everything right away. First off, I don't think we have to. And secondly, I when you have the running backs we have, I mean, why would you? When he's a true freshman quarterback, at some point though, we're going to need Drew to be able to sling it. And I think he's going to be ready when we do.
Right now, Shawn, if you had to bet, first play from scrimmage, pass or run?
Run.
I would honestly put $50 that it's going to be a pass.
Not a betting man.
Yeah.
But I'll bet you a beer.
Okay. I really think they're going to pass.
My fiance and I might be at the first game, so.
Nice. That's good to hear.
Yep.
Very good to hear. Yeah, no, I would I think they're going to come out and they're going to throw the ball. I think they're going to throw the ball around a little bit. We'll see.
We shall. And at some point, I mean, like I said, he's going to have to, but I don't think you necessarily need to force him to do it with the supporting cast that we have, and we're all expecting the offensive line to be even better than last year. And I shared a stat last week, I think, on Twitter. Penn State was very middle of the pack in their running back first contact with their running back. So it's an advanced stat. I think they only went like 2 yards without getting hit on average. And I think you're gonna try to bump that up this year, and I think they will. And that's only gonna help Aller out. So yeah, I think I'd be a little bit more conservative with him, at least at first.
Those are rookie numbers. You got to boost those numbers up. Bump those numbers up. Final question here from Dorado Bandit, which I believe he is, at least for a little bit, was watching on the show live. Why they go 15-0? Defense will give opposing quarterbacks nightmares. Drew Aller and the wide receivers will click early, and Nick Singleton will win the Heisman. Easy as that. He also just said on YouTube, play action pass and hits Keandre Lambert-Smith on a long touchdown, start the season off right. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. People would be going nuts if that happened. His question reads, hypothetically, if Penn State went 12-0 in the regular season, who would you be more nervous about playing in the playoffs a second time? Michigan or Ohio State? I think that's actually a really awesome question. He had to play one of those guys again, assuming UM or Ohio State goes 11-1, makes the playoff. Who would you rather play a second time, Shawn?
That is a very good question. Michigan. Reason is, now we'll get into the Michigan preview, but I have some thoughts on Michigan. Well, I'll just say it. I mean, I think Michigan's going to beat Ohio State again. I do. I really like this Michigan team, unfortunately. The reason I say them is Ohio State still has more talent than us. And it's hard to beat a team more talented than you once. You got to do it twice. I think that's just too tall of a task. Whereas with Michigan, if you beat them, you have a roadmap then to beat them. And I feel like with the team with equal talent, that would be easier to replicate twice in a season. But I
Okay,
really
so just
wouldn't
to
want to face
clarify.
either of them again.
So just to clarify, you'd be more nervous about playing Ohio State a second time, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I would rather not play Michigan a second time, to be honest with you. If we beat Ohio State, I think that means we're very much clearly better than Ohio State. We could beat Michigan simply because we got up to a 14-point lead on Michigan, and then they just weren't able to get back into it. And then that could be completely different the next time around if Michigan had the lead all of a sudden, right? Like those games to me, like if they can get in a rhythm and they can run the ball and they can get some consistency, they can really take the air out of the game. But at home, I can see Penn State jumping on them and taking care of business, and then playing them in a neutral field. Maybe that's not as easy. And I do think Harbaugh is a better at preparing, at least defensively, for teams than Ohio State is. I would feel like it would be more difficult to maybe move the football against Harbaugh a second time than say move the ball a second time against Jim Knowles and Ryan Day and company.
Harbaugh's his bowl record's pretty abysmal though.
That is true. Bad against bowls, but remember, when he was in the NFL, he had to play the same team twice. So he's got some experience playing the same team twice in a row, or in the same season.
No, that's true. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't want to play either of these guys again. I think it's going to take everything we have in us to beat both these teams once. So, yeah, I would not look forward to a rematch against them, especially if we won the first one. If we'd lost the second one, especially if it's close, we had another shot at them. Yeah, I mean, I think I'd feel pretty good either way. I'd feel better.
No, I'm with you. But that's a good question. Thanks, Dorito. That's all the questions we have today. You know what? I wasn't going to wait to the very end, but I did wait to the very end. First of all, if you're still watching, please like the video if you haven't liked the video already. Very, very happy to be back. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you're subscribing wherever you're listening, whatever platform it may be, whether it's Apple or Spotify or whatever it is. Make sure you're subscribed to wherever that is. And then please, 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 we haven't had a 5-star review to read on the show for a while, which I forgot to wait to the last minute to do so. But drop us a 5-star review. We'll send you a Hardcore PSUFB sticker, and we'll read your 5-star review on the show. If you give us a 5-star rating on Spotify, we'll do the same thing. So please consider doing that. Otherwise, hopefully we'll have some exciting news for you guys soon.
Yeah. I think we've done really big things, and the amount of people that have been listening to us the past few weeks. I mean, we're getting more people listening to us now than they did last football season. And last football season, and really around this time last year is when we started taking off. But I have a feeling this thing's gonna get really big soon. So yeah, we have a lot in store for you. So looking forward to this season. I feel like I say this every week. I give you an update on the day of the month, which you could easily look at on your phone. But I'm going to tell you, the next time we're with you, it'll be late July. So we are really, really getting there, guys, and I can't wait for this season, man. Can't wait.
Yep, we will be back next week to talk, obviously, Penn State football, potentially 2 new commits, as well as Michigan State, Michigan, and Rutgers. Does that sound like a plan to you, Shawn?
Sounds like a plan, and I'll give my official
sneeze? Your official sneeze? Bless you.
Sneeze. I'll give you my official Michigan State versus Maryland hot take for the season.
I'll make sure to record that
like
as well.
Like I said, I don't know which way I'm going yet. I have to look at Michigan State.
Okay.
I might surprise you and take Maryland.
I feel like you couldn't do that. The deepest part of your soul wouldn't allow that to happen.
Yeah, it'd be tough. But I'm not saying I'm selling my Mel Tucker stock, but I'm beginning to call around to investors. I'm beginning to talk to them.
You shouldn't even be allowed to say that after that conversation we had last year regarding Mel Tucker. And
all right, he was coming off an 11-win season.
Nope, I'm done with you for the day.
No, like I said, I'm not even selling it yet, but I'm starting to sweat it out.
Nope. We're
taking
done.
my pulse, and I'm like, I think we got to sell.
No, we're done.
I'm
here.
not doing it yet.
Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us on YouTube as well. We appreciate you guys on YouTube. We will see you guys all next week. Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.